Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Shack. My name is Mikey, and we are sitting here with my good friend Spen from
Hello.
JRE Industries, and we are going to be having another campfire conversation. Spen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, what kind of stuff do you want to know?
Well, start with who you
All
are,
right.
where you're from, what you do.
Well, my name is Spen. I'm from the Chicagoland area. I've born and raised in Cook County, Illinois. I started JRE Industries in 2006. Prior to that, I was data processing for about 15 years. Prior to that, I was an engineer working for a family-sized company. And prior to that, I was in school. So basically, I had one job, and then JRE was my second job.
Okay, so for those who don't know, JRE Industries is a leather manufacturer and produces some of the world's best sheaths. And they are all the sheaths that go on the LT Wright knives, as well as many other manufacturers, some of which you can talk about. Who are some of the other knife makers that you make sheaths for?
I've done some limited runs for K-Bar knives. I've done SE knives. I'm one of my oldest customers outside of LT has been Havelis Bush Tools, which they've been almost from the very beginning. I've done a run for Reef knives. I do sheaths and strop adds for River's Edge Cutlery, Ben's Backwoods. Who else? Carry Commission, which has been a recent one with their pocket carry clip. I've done that one.
But you essentially make sheaths that fit a number of knives regardless of the manufacturer.
Yes, I can pretty much, with my general production line, I can fit about 80 to 85% of all the knives out there.
Okay. And all of your sheaths are obviously American made because you're based out of Chicago.
Absolutely.
And all your leather is sourced from America, correct?
Yes.
And so you've been making sheaths for quite some time now.
Yes. Close to 20 years.
That is a long time.
Yeah.
What would you say is your favorite part of the sheath making process?
My favorite part is when a knife maker will come up and say, hey, I've got a new knife I want to make a sheath for, and I get to design a sheath for it.
Okay.
One of the most recent one is Garrett Tremblay from Bear Forest Knives. He does limited runs of some very interesting knives, and he pretty much gives me free rein to whatever design I want to make for him. So I've come up with some interesting concepts and designs for short runs for him.
Yeah. And you and LT work pretty closely on all of the sheaths that go on the LT Wright knives, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that process and the design aspect?
I was one of the first in the pretty much leather industry that started doing these square bottom style sheaths. Traditionally before, it's always been a pointed bottom sheath. I really enjoyed and liked the functionality of a square bottom sheath, which gives you two extra mounting points for eyelets. And you can attach more gear to it. You can also attach it to other things. So all of our sheaths for the last 5 years have had, for the most part, all of our sheaths have 3 eyelets on them. So you can attach multiple things to it, or you can attach it to anything else.
Okay.
And with LT and most of the knives that he makes, I usually have something in my product line that will fit it. Or if he's doing a special run, I can design a sheath that'll fit that knife.
Okay. And how many knives or sheaths do you have in your general product line?
We have about 25 to 30 that are in our product line, which are also on our website.
Okay. JREindustries.com?
JREindustries.com.
Okay. So anyone can visit your website and find a sheath that will work for their knife?
Anybody who has a knife, they can go on our website, and we have a downloadable PDF on there that has as many compatibility lists of which knives will fit what sheaths.
Well, that's very convenient. In your design process over the years, have you refined the leather that you're using? Is there a specific leather that you use?
We use traditionally use two different colors. We use a dark brown or a black.
Okay.
And we source all of our leather from Wickett and Craig, which is in Pennsylvania. And they will split it to 8 ounces as close as they possibly can. Now, being a natural material, there's always some variance in that. It's not going to be something like Kydex where you can get exact.
Right.
So there's always some variance in it, but they will split it to us for as close they can to 8 ounces on it. And then one of the things that was always kind of a pet peeve for me when people were making sheaths, just like in their basement or anything like that, is the inside of it will always be just that raw natural color when they dye it. That was a very big pet peeve for mine because I wanted the inside or the unfinished side to match the outside.
Okay.
I think it gives a much more finished sheath.
And in your design process and in your manufacturing of the sheaths, is there anything special that you're doing that sort of sets you apart from some of the other leather makers?
The fact that we can offer a quality sheath for the price that we do.
Okay.
We try to keep the price down so it's not going to be a drawer queen. I want something that people will go out there, they'll use, they'll get it dirty, they'll get it muddy, and they won't feel bad about it.
And you love seeing pictures of heavily used sheaths?
That is one of my favorite things when a customer will say, hey, I've had this sheath for 10 years, I've finally wore it out, and what it looks like, and then I will be happy to replace it.
That's awesome.
So I have 100% guarantee no matter what the problem is. I've had 3 or 4 people through the years that have actually said their dog got a hold of it and chewed it just gone.
Well, I know that I personally have several of your products, and my Leatherman sheath holder is going on 15 years at this point, and I have never done anything to maintain it, and it is still holding strong.
Yeah, that's one of the greatest compliments I could have, is somebody that's had a sheath on their belt for that long, and it's held up, it's held the knife.
Yeah. And I was fortunate enough to get a leather wallet from you that I absolutely love and would love to see you make those, but I know it's not necessarily in your wheelhouse.
No.
They are incredible. You do just amazing things with leather as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
So what drew you to leather crafting from data processing and engineering?
It really, the whole thing all started with a little $5 sharpener.
Okay.
And just happened to see in the back of a magazine, it might even been Field of Stream, one of those magazines like that back in the day, that there was this little $5 sharpener, which was basically one of those ones that just has a little X on it, that is the carbide that you draw a knife. And it just it was so compact that it really kind of intrigued me, so I started digging through it and finding where I can get this stuff. That actually led me to the old blade forms.
Okay.
So I got involved with the blade forms and just kind of looking around like that. Wow. And I was really surprised on there's a whole community out there that love knives. And I had no idea this even existed at the time.
Yeah. Now, were you always a knife user?
I was, but I was always like the $110, just the really good, inexpensive knives. I never knew there was like a custom knife community and that kind of thing. I never knew that even existed.
Okay. So take me through the process. You're at your job being the data processor, and you start to see these ads in the magazine, and you were like, hey, this is something I want to try on the side.
It was just, through blade forms, I got kind of involved with Bark River because I really liked what they were doing. They had what really kind of drew me to Bark River is the fact that they use so many different scales.
Okay.
And different handle materials that they were using. It was very unique, and I've never seen anything like that before. So they had a couple grind-ins. I went to the grind-ins to see what it was, and Mike Stewart at the time says, I really can't find anybody to make good sheaths. Okay. I said, how hard can this be is what I was thinking to myself.
Right.
I was like, it's just bending some leather and sewing it, and I was very fortunate with my parents that my father was an automobile mechanic, and I was out in the garage with him since I was 4 years old.
Okay.
He taught me a lot about mechanics, but one of the biggest things he taught me was how to think, how to solve problems. If there's an issue, he taught me how to do that. The other side of the coin was my mother was a stay-at-home mom at the time, and always was when I was growing up. She taught me how to sew.
Oh.
So I kind of had the skill set of how to think through a problem, and I also had the fact of I knew how to sew, I knew how to work with materials. I never worked with leather before.
Right.
So like, okay. And then to kind of coincide with that is many years ago when I was in the Boy Scouts, I took an old hacksaw blade and I made myself a knife with that and a broomstick handle. And the only thing I had at the time was a piece of galvanized steel that I made a sheath for.
Okay.
So I had this and I was like, well, how hard can this be? I can make a sheath for this.
Yeah.
So getting to know the Bark River and their whole knife line and everything else, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I think I'll make a sheath for this. So I made a sheath for it, which was absolutely horrible. But it served the purpose.
Do you still have the sheath?
I do. I still have the knife. I still have the sheath. And so then Mike Stewart said, I can't find anybody to make sheaths. I was like, how hard can this be?
Yeah.
So I started trying to figure out how to do this stuff. And it's like, all right, I need a sewing machine. I got one of the Tipman sewing machines, which was basically the hand-operated sewing machines. It had the like a slot machine pull handle, very simple like that. I got one of those and got some leather. Got one of the little Tipman air compressor 7-ton presses, which is like a little 12 by 12 press.
Okay.
Figured out where to get dyes from, and I started making sheaths for Bark River.
Okay. And now for the people who don't necessarily understand the leather making process, the press is designed to, you basically have like a cookie cutter and you press down.
Yep.
So kind of explain that for people who don't necessarily understand the process.
It's you start out with your basic side of leather or a part of a leather. And then if you can think of just a regular cookie cutter going through cookie dough. It's the same concept. With cookie dough, you obviously use your hand because you don't need that much pressure. But it's the same kind of what they call a steel roll die.
Okay.
So it is a ribbon of steel that is sharpened on one end in the exact pattern that you need.
Okay.
So you lay that on the leather, and then this press will actually press the die into the leather until it cuts it completely through. So you get an exact pattern every single time you cut it.
Okay. And then from there, you take the leather and do what to it?
From that point is, because I get the leather already dyed on both sides, I don't have to dye it. So it's already pre-dyed, ready to go with that. So that eliminates that step on it. From that point there, I will glue the welt, which is the middle section of the sheath itself.
So it's like a big spacer essentially for the knife blade.
And it also protects the stitching from the sharp edge of the blade.
Okay.
So that gets glued onto the sheath. And then once that's dried, then I fold it together and then use binder clamps to hold that. So both sides are glued. I use the binder clamps until the glue dries. And then once that's glued, then I stitch them.
Okay.
So that's your final. And then after that, we grind the edges.
Okay.
To make them smooth.
The belt loop is part of that pattern that you press out, correct?
Yes.
And that gets folded over and then you rivet that on?
Yes. That is a what they call a single cap rivet.
Okay.
So on the inside of the sheet, there is no cap on it. So it's basically an unfinished rivet on the inside.
Okay.
And the purpose of that is it's embedded into the leather so it does not scratch the blade or the handle material at the time, wherever the handle happens to fall into it.
Okay. And then at some point in time, you press the rivets, the grommets through that you mentioned earlier?
After everything is stitched and we get it all to its final form, then we will drill the holes into it and we'll place the rivets and then the eyelets, and then we'll set the eyelets.
Okay. Are the eyelet holes done as part of the pressing, or are you actually drilling the holes?
Initially, when we first started doing it, we had the eyelets already pre-punched into it. But the problem was that because leather is a natural product, it's not the exact thickness, they always misaligned a little bit.
Okay.
So we decided that the best way to do that was to drill them after everything is stitched.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if you do it afterwards, then you don't have to worry about when you're stitching it that your needle will go into one of the holes. And if it goes into the hole, it'll run the stitch it's out and break the needle almost every time.
Oh, okay.
So we drill it after everything is stitched.
Okay. And just as a typical, no interruptions kind of thing, how long from start to finish would it take you to make one sheath?
On our normal sheaths, from start to finish, it would take about 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay. And I apologize if it's a little noisy. It's starting to rain here, and we're obviously at a camp out right now in true campfire conversation format. So I apologize if it is getting a little noisy in the background. But, that's the joys of a live recording.
Right.
So as you're making the sheaths and you've kind of developed these universal shapes that fit a lot of these knives, what would you say is your next step? So you've got a sheath, it fits a particular knife, and you're just trying the other knives in it to see what will fit in that particular sheath.
And our customers are a big part of that too.
Okay. You get a lot of feedback.
We get a lot of feedback on it. They will say, "Hey, I've got this particular knife. What sheath do you think fits in it?" Mm-hmm. We'll work for that knife. And one of the things that I will do is, if I can find a picture of the knife, I will print it out to scale.
Okay. So you can just do it right from a picture?
For the most part, I can, unless it's like a really wacky design. Mm-hmm. I can pretty much do it from a picture. I can get a general idea of how it will fit. A lot of times it'll be similar to something that I already know fits a particular sheath. Okay. So I know the basic size of the knife is similar to, say, like an LT Wright Bushcrafter. Okay. I know it's similar to that. So if it's a similar size, that I know it'll fit in a Model E.
Okay. And I know that in the bushcraft community, which is probably your principal customer base,
yes,
would you say that the deeper the knife fits in the sheath is more akin to what your customers are asking for?
We typically try to size a sheath for a knife where about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of the handle is exposed. Okay. That seems to give about the overall a really good retention to the knife when it's in the sheath. Mm-hmm. It keeps it from falling out as much as we can. Now, because it's a natural product, it's going to flex and everything else, so it's not really designed to be upside down. Right. So an inverted carry. But with 1 inch to 1.5 inches of handle exposed, it gives you enough purchase with your fingers to pull it out, but it still gives it good retention. Okay.
Now, as you've mentioned, the leather is a natural product. Do you find that the environmental conditions that the knife is in affects the sheath?
It can. If a sheath is in a highly humid condition, then it will affect the feel of the leather. If it's in a much colder environment, the leather is going to be a little bit harder. Okay. So there is, environmentally speaking, it does affect the leather quality itself. Okay.
And since we're sort of talking about care, what would you say is the best way to maintain one of your sheaths?
It really depends on what the users actually wants to do with it. If they just want to protect the sheath, there pretty much isn't anything you need to do to it. But if you want to, you can do a coating of mink oil to it. Neatsfoot oil works well. If you're looking to do a little bit of waterproofing, open off water seal is really good. I prefer snow seal personally. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a very pasty substance. You coat it on there with your hands. I'll hit it with a hair dryer. It'll suck right into the leather. Mm-hmm. A couple coats like that, and that's pretty much good. It's going to be very water resistant at that point.
Okay. And as a end user, do you have an opinion on the concept of wet forming the sheaths?
I do, and it really depends on the style of the knife. Okay. The style of the knife handle, how it fits in the sheath. The leather that we use takes a wet form very well. You can wet form it exactly to the knife itself. If it has more of a palm swell to it, a little bit of a finger guard to it, wet forming it will make it snap in very nicely. Mm-hmm. and that does improve how it fits in and it gives a little more of a customized look to the sheath itself.
Okay. And you do offer sheaths and different carry options.
Yes.
Can you?
We have what's be a standard belt carry.
So a hip sheath.
Which would be a hip sheath. And then we also have another option, which would be called a dangler option, which is a separate part of leather that hangs down that allows the knife to be carried lower. Okay. And the purpose of that would be if you're backpacking and you have a hip strap that goes around, it keeps the knife lower so it's not digging into that.
Okay.
So you're still able to access the knife even with your full pack on. Or if you get in and out of a vehicle, it'll just swing out of the way and it's not digging into your hip.
Okay. And what is your personal favorite way to carry the knife?
It really depends on the knife.
Okay.
If it's a smaller knife, I prefer just a standard hip carry with it. If it's more a larger knife, like for instance the Luminous, which is, if I could toot my own horn, one of the knives that I designed.
Toot away.
Thank you. That was one of my knife designs that LT Wright decided was good enough to do a knife for. So that one I prefer to be a dangler because it's a heavier, bigger knife.
Okay.
And it just feels more comfortable to be as a dangler.
Okay. And you've kind of, the rage right now is a lot of everyday carry knives are going towards fixed blades, sort of away from folders. And you said you were doing some stuff with Terry Commission.
Yes.
And doing pocket sheaths. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
It seems within the last maybe year or so, it kind of seems what I've seen is the trend is going to smaller fixed blades rather than a folder. Mm-hmm. So what we've done a fair amount of is we take our standard sheaths, like the A sheath is one of our smaller square bottom sheaths, and I will make the sheath without a belt loop completely, but I will sew a little chevron under that has a pocket clip on it.
Okay.
So that can be carried into your pocket, and it's a very low profile carry, so there's not much of the knife actually exposed outside of your pocket.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about how you got the name Spen, because that's not your given name.
Okay. My given name is Glenn, actually,
okay.
Which not a lot of people know. But back many, many years ago, probably going back about 30, 35 years, I used to do a lot of fishing.
Okay.
In the Chicago Tribune, I think it was, there was a fishing report writer in the paper that used to give fishing reports for the local lakes and ponds. Mm-hmm. His name was John Spen. So the group of friends that I was hanging out with at the time came up with the bright idea that Glenn rhymes with Spen.
Okay.
So now he spelled it differently. He spelled it S-P-E-H-N. That was actually his last name. So they just, because I like to fish and Glenn rhymed with Spen, they just started calling me Spen.
Okay.
And for some odd reason, it just kind of stuck.
Okay. And with the name Spen, you sort of become that iconic character, kind of like Cher or Madonna.
Pretty much, right.
Yeah. And so when your mother's mad at you and she's calling for you, are you getting Spen? Are you getting Glenn?
No.
Okay.
When I was little and I would hear from the other room, Glenn Anthony, come in here, I knew I was in trouble. And my mother being Italian, I usually had the wooden spoon in her hand.
Oh, yeah.
So I knew I was going to get a swat on the butt. And there's actually kind of a funny story about that. One of my good friends that lives close to me, Brian Thornburg, he always knew me as Spen, so he knew that. And when Wendy and I got married, he was invited to a wedding. He came up and he introduced himself as to my mother, and he says, "My name is Brian Thornburg. I'm very good friends with your son Spen." My mother looked him directly in the eyes. His name's not Spen. His name is Glenn. And she was like 92 at the time.
Yeah.
So I mean, she's this little 5'0" Italian, talking to Brian, going, "His name is Glenn," and he was like totally taken aback by it. So. Yeah, she would never call me Spen.
Okay.
It was always Glenn.
Now, in my experiences, because we've known each other for quite some time now, there was some confusion because some people referred to you as Mike, too.
Yes.
So Where did the Mike come from? Because it was like, is it Glenn? Is it Spen? Is it Mike?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. And that's because of my email address.
Okay.
My email address is mike.spen.
Okay.
So LT for years thought my name actually was Mike Spencer.
Okay.
And just Spen was my nickname.
Yep.
So that actually came from when Gmail was invite only.
Oh,
Back,
wow.
way back.
You are getting in the Wayback Machine,
That's
aren't
right.
you?
That was way back when it was just invite only. And you can only be invited by somebody who actually had a Gmail account. Because I was with the Bark River Knives group, we thought it'd be funny if we would all have Gmail addresses that had Mike something for Mike Stewart. So I just did mike.spen@gmail.com, and I just kept it.
So if anyone has suggestions on sheaths or needs something, you can get Glenn.
You can get me at mike.spen@gmail.com or JRE Industries @gmail.com.
Okay. And so in the process of making sheaths, I know you have a outlet company for some of your lower quality sheaths.
Yes.
Or,
Our imperfect sheaths.
Yes.
Right.
So if somebody's looking for something like that, can they find that information?
That is, we have another website that I've had for years and never knew what to do with it because I thought it was a cool name. It's called wetdogleather.com.
Okay.
And the way that name came about was I got a 2004 Jeep Cherokee from a friend of mine who had 3 Rottweilers.
Oh, wow.
And always traveled with the Rottweilers.
Yep.
So because they were always in the Jeep, it smelled like dog.
Okay.
So when I first got it, my daughter Rebecca, first got it, I says, "Hey, what do you think about my new vehicle that I'm driving around?" She says, "It smells like a wet dog." I was like, and then for some reason it just clicked. Wet Dog Leather is a cool website name.
Yep.
So I was like, so I immediately bought the domain name. Had no idea what to do with it, but I just bought it.
Now on the Wet Dog Leather, you are doing drops, right?
Yes.
So it's not something that people can go on there and just pick up an imperfect sheath.
We try to keep, we typically do lots of like 5 or 6 sheets, and they will go for a lot of 5 or 6 sheets will be about $25.
Which is a great deal if you're looking for sheaths.
Right. And these are all sheaths that maybe there might be something wrong with the stitching that I don't like, that I will not sell. So I've had, throughout the almost 20 years of doing this, I've had boxes of this stuff sitting around that I had no idea what to do with. So I think it was actually you that said we should start selling these random sheaths.
Yeah.
And I was going to initially start it on eBay. I was like, that's just too much work.
Yeah.
So then I just came up with the brilliant idea of, well, let's just make an outlet store, Wet Dog Leather. So I have my office manager, Robin, which is my sister-in-law. She developed the website for me, and she does all the pictures, all the write-ups, and everything else for the lots. And we try to keep about a dozen lots of sheets there. Okay.
Now, the lots, are they all the same size sheath? It's just a variety? You never know what you're going to get?
You really don't know. I mean, we take pictures of everything that's there next to a ruler, so you kind of get a rough idea what they are. But they could be anywhere from some of the sheaths that we normally stock and we make, our normal product line stuff, or they could be one-offs that when I was doing a lot of custom stuff that, I didn't like the fit, so I would have to redo the sheath, but I didn't know it wouldn't fit until I basically finished the sheath.
Sure.
So it could be some of that stuff. I mean, some of the sheaths there that we have on the website could be a $200 sheath that has just a bad stitching on it. And
so nothing wrong with the sheath, it's just aesthetically feeling.
Excuse me. All the sheaths are fully functional that are on there. There's just something wrong with them that is not our first quality that we will sell.
Okay. And you had mentioned that you do custom work. Is that something that you're still doing, or have you kind of gotten away from that because the production side of things is...
Exactly. It got to the point I was primarily doing custom work, and then production was kind of like an afterthought. It got to the point where I had so much work that I was almost at a 38-week lead time for sheaths.
Wow.
And I just did not think that was fair for a customer to wait that long for a sheath.
Yeah.
So I just slowly transitioned to the fact of production stuff is my primary focus right now. I will do modifications to sheaths. Like if some of the knives I know will fit a particular model, but maybe the sheath needs to be like 3/4 of an inch shorter.
Okay.
To get a little more handle purchase. That's something that I will do at no cost to the customer, as long as I know what it is and he communicates to me that, hey, I've got this particular knife. One of them is the Bradford 3.5 that has been pretty popular lately. It's basically a Model E that I have to trim a little bit of the welt out, and I have to shorten it up by about 3/4 of an inch. So if they tell me, it's like, hey, I've got a Bradford 3.5, I need a sheath for it, it's like, okay, just go ahead and order a Model E and let me know that you ordered it.
Okay.
And then what I'll do is I'll mark the order that when it comes in. So then I know that that's for the Bradford 3.5. I know to trim the welt a little bit. I know to shorten the sheath a little.
Okay. So if a customer goes on your website and orders a sheath, is there a wait time, or do you have production stock in stock? That
Everything off the website is all made to order.
Okay.
Because we have, from any one of our stock sheaths that we could have a plain sheath which has just the belt loop, no fire steel loop, no dangler. We could have fire steel loop only. We could have dangler only, or we could have fire steel loop and dangler.
Okay.
Now, with those 4 different options on it, we could also have left-hand sheets. So now that's 8 different SKUs.
Yep.
Now that we have 8 different SKUs, we could also have that in black and brown. So that is just way too much to keep in stock.
Okay.
So everything I do is made to order. Everything goes out of the shop within 2 business days. Most of the time, it'll go within the next business day.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm just flabbergasted. You kind of left me speechless with that.
Wow, that's a first.
That's just amazing. I can't believe you guys turned sheaths around that quickly.
And I think it's very, considering how long I was with the custom work, I think it's very fair to a customer that it's all about immediate gratification. I mean, they have the knife that they want to use, they want to carry it, they want to enjoy what they've just spent their hard-earned money with. They're going to want that sheath as quick as possible. And considering I can't stock that many different variations of the sheath, I think it's proper for the customer to get that sheath as quick as possible.
Yeah.
So anytime an order comes in the morning or overnight or whenever it comes in, my first priority is to make all those sheaths. Once I finish with those sheaths, then we can start working on the production stuff.
Okay.
And any of the website order stuff, I do those myself.
Oh, wow. Okay. And you've got a couple of people that are working for you now?
I do.
In addition to your office manager?
Yep. I have my office manager, which she comes in 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, and she handles all the shipping, all the bookkeeping. She keeps track of the website. She takes care of all that stuff for me. I have a full-time employee, Chris. I have a part-time employee that does some of the odd stuff for me, like with our strap bats. She makes the strap covers for me. She does some other random little projects and things like that for me. So it's basically 4 of us total that do all the production.
Okay.
And we do about 10 to 12,000 sheets a year.
That's amazing. You had mentioned the strop bat. Can you talk a little bit more about that product? Because I'm aware of it, but I don't necessarily know that the listeners are.
The strop bat is a 4-sided strop that is done out of 2x2 oak. So on each side, it's 1.5 inches by 9 inches.
Okay.
Each side has leather glued to it. We have a plain side, which is just the raw leather to it. And then 3 other sides are loaded with 3 different compounds. There's a black, there's a green, and there's a blue. Each one, the black is a coarsest, which is somewhere with the compound that we use, there isn't a grit to it per se, like a sandpaper.
Sure.
But it's equivalent to like a 3,000 grit.
Okay.
The green is like around a 5,000 grit, and the blue is like a 7,000 grit, approximate.
And you're obviously a big fan of stropping, otherwise
yes, I am.
Probably wouldn't make a strop bat.
Yep.
Can you kind of talk a little bit about why stropping is the ticket for you?
Stropping is something that will never take a dull knife and make it sharp, but it'll maintain a sharp knife and make it sharper.
Okay.
It's a process of refining the edge without taking any material off the edge.
Which would ultimately shorten the lifespan of the knife.
Exactly. So in a perfect world, when you get done using a knife, you would strop it.
Okay.
It's just like back in the day when the barbers used to use straight razors, they would always have a strop there, and right before they'd use it, they would strop the knife.
Okay. And so in addition to the strop bat, which is your four-sided piece, you make a couple other strops, correct?
We have two other ones. We have a field strop, which is about 18 inches by 1.5 inches. And you can plain or you can have it loaded with one of the 3 different compounds that we use.
Okay.
It has a little piece of shock cord on it and a little handle that's on it. It's all done out of leather. It's very easily to roll up. It's small. It rolls up in a little tiny roll, and it's very easy just to throw in your pack to have it with you.
Okay.
You can attach it to a little twig coming off a tree. You can step on it, any place that you can get a little bit of tension to it. And then that's the same concept of like a barber strop. You would just strop your knife to it.
Yep.
And just to when you're out in the field, strop the knife when you're using it. And just to maintain that edge so you don't have to go back and spend all that time trying to resharpen a knife.
Sure.
And then we also have what's called a field strop, or a strop strap, which is about 23 inches long. It has a handle on it, which is sewn, and then it has a D-ring on the other side. And this is more something for a bench strap.
Okay.
So you can hang it off on a hook somewhere. It's hanging off on with the rest of your tools. You can just grab it, give a little tension to it with the handle, give a quick strop, you're ready to go.
Yeah, and I know that at times we've featured your strop strap in videos, and we have used that D-ring to clamp it into a vise to give an anchor point.
Yep.
And the other thing with the field strap that I have seen done is people have hooked it to a carabiner and attached it to a tree or a pack or anything as an anchor point that way.
Yeah, any place you can get a good attachment point to it, it really doesn't matter.
But the strop strap is sort of your premium sharpening product. Strop bat, sorry.
The strop bat, yes. Yeah.
And too many words that sound the same.
And we can literally not keep those in stock.
Yeah. And you also turn the wood handle yourself, correct?
We start with an 8-foot 2x2 of oak. We cut them down for the 8-foot. We get 6 pieces out of it. And then I will turn the handle on each one of them, so it's all one piece. It's not something that's screwed together or anything else. It's all one piece of solid oak.
So, in your experience, the strops and the sheaths kind of all coincide because of the leather base for both products.
Right.
Is there anything that you aren't making that you would like to see brought to the market?
One thing I've always wanted to do, but it's just a total different skill set, is kydex.
Okay.
And I would like to see a more kind of a melding between leather and kydex.
Okay.
Now, I know Sammy does a phenomenal job.
Sure.
With the kydex stuff, and it's a skill set that I would love to learn because I think there's something where you can do like a leather wrapped kydex, and which I've done a few of those when I was doing custom work.
Yeah.
But it's just insanely time consuming to get it right.
Okay.
And I cannot charge enough to actually make it profitable for me. But I think there's some kind of amalgamation of those two that can be a really cool kind of sheath.
Okay. And where do you sort of see the knife market in general, but particularly sheaths, headed? Where do you think the future is on that?
Currently, right now, the small fixed blade pocket sheaths.
Okay.
And the smaller fixed blades rather than folders. I see that kind of trending right now. One of the other things that we're starting to develop is we're developing a product line of our smaller sheaths, from the very small sheath, which would be an L, up to maybe like an E, which is kind of a mid-sized general purpose size. I'm developing the same basic style for those, but they will be able to, you'd be able to attach a Ulti clip to.
Okay. So for listeners who don't know, an Ulti clip is sort of a metal camming clip that will attach to your pocket or your belt,
Yes.
and then it will lock into place.
And it's a very secure locking. I mean, it's once it's clipped onto your pocket or wherever you're clipping to, it's not coming off unless you want it to come off.
Yeah. They're a great product, and if you're unfamiliar with them, definitely go check out Ulti Clip.
Yep.
Is there something that like you have seen other sheath makers do that you are looking at and saying, this is something that like I can do better, or I can improve upon, or is there something in your process that you really like but you see that evolving somehow?
We're always trying to evolve our processes to make things more efficient and to get a better quality sheath out there. One of the things that's always kind of a pet peeve for me is the edge of the sheath.
Okay.
Where the stitch line is and where the three pieces of leather come together. That finished edge right there has always been a pet peeve for me. I want it to look like a finished piece of plywood.
Okay.
And we're always kind of working on how we can tweak that process to get it a nice clean finish, but not spending 20 minutes trying to do it.
Sure.
So that's something we're always kind of working on, trying to involve the best way to do that.
Okay. And of the sheath making process, what would you say is your just like, oh man, I got to do this part again?
It's usually the stitching part.
Okay.
And it's not that I don't enjoy it. It's just that it's very time consuming to be able to do it. I mean, we can stitch, and I do 99% of the stitching myself. We typically try to work in batches of 50 at a time.
Okay.
And it'll take me about 45 to 50 minutes to do, depending on the sheath itself.
Okay.
To actually do those. The one thing about stitching on leather like that versus if you're stitching a piece of a t-shirt or if you're stitching a clothing or anything like that.
Yeah.
The clothing part, the stitching is not a cosmetic part of the product itself. It's actually just to hold it into a finished position. Stitching is very important in the cosmetic aspect of a sheath because that's one of the first things that you see.
And it's a contrasting color. It
Yes.
won't blend.
Right. And if the stitching is off, that's one of the first things that draws your eye to. So especially with the larger sheaths that we do, like the Ks, the Qs, the Ss, the Us, any of the larger sheaths like that, we always do a double line of stitching. And if that double line is off, you notice it right away.
Okay. Just to kind of change the subject a little bit, if there was something that you could be doing right now that you absolutely could not fail at, what would you be doing with your life?
Wow. Okay. Something that I would absolutely, I mean, besides sheath making?
Or sheath
Anything?
making? Anything.
Wow. Because I've devoted so much of my time in the last almost 20 years of making sheaths and developing that particular product. I don't really know what else I would be doing.
So you're doing it.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely love what I'm doing.
Right?
You know, I love the fact of I get quite a few customers that will get their sheaths and they'll actually call me or email me and say, hey, I just got your sheath. This is an amazing product. I love this product. I love the workmanship that you've done. It's something that you don't really see too much anymore.
Yeah, for sure. The phone rings tomorrow.
Yes.
And there's a knife maker on the line. Who would you want it to be? Who is the knife maker that you would love to absolutely work with?
First off, one of the knife makers that I really love to work with is LT.
Okay.
And just because I love the company, I love all the people that are there. They're just an incredible group to work with overall.
And LT, I know, has mentioned a lot that he considers the sheath to be an integral part of the knife package.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's, if you don't have a proper way to carry a knife, then it's just a drawer queen. you have to have a proper way to carry the knife that you feel safe carrying the knife with.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're not just going to walk around with a knife in your hand because that's just silly. You have to have a proper way to carry the knife. And LT is 100% correct that it is an integral part with the entire package. And if it's a very inexpensive, just cheap quality sheath, it's basically just a shipping container. It's just a way to ship the sheath. You're not going to be safe, and you're not going to feel comfortable carrying it in that sheath, and you're not going to be proud of the knife.
Yeah.
The sheath is the first thing you see when somebody looks on your belt and says, "Wow, that's kind of interesting. What is that?"
Yeah. Because you can only see an inch and a half of it.
Right. Exactly. You might see a little bit of the handle, and that's about it.
Yeah. Would you say, and I know this answer, so I'm sort of biased in this. Would you say that the sheath complements or elevates a knife?
Yes. I would say both of that.
Okay.
It will complement, excuse me, it'll complement the knife because it's not something that detracts what the knife is. It goes back to the fact of it's a package. The knife fits with the sheath. They look both like they belong together, like it's one cohesive unit. So in that respect, it complements the knife, but it also elevates the knife too, because if you've got a really lousy looking sheath, it's not going to make the knife look any better. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's not going to make the knife perform any better. It's not going to be any like magical wizardry stuff that's going to make the knife suddenly make it. The knife is the knife.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad or whatever, but it'll elevate the appearance and use of the knife.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've had the unique pleasure of being next to you at the Blade Show for many, many years now. And I have seen many a customer come up with a beautiful knife in a lower quality sheath, let's say. And they've come up to your table and they've said, please let me get a sheath from you. And I've seen that knife go from a great knife and an okay sheath to an amazing package. And that, for me, is just something that easily elevates the knife.
And that's a wonderful thrill for me, too, at the Blade Show when somebody comes up with a knife and say, hey, do you have a sheath that fits this? And if it's a knife that I'm familiar with, I know exactly what sheath it is. If not, I'll make my best guess. And about 85 to 90% of the time, I can find a sheath that'll fit that perfectly.
Okay.
And it's a great thrill for me for someone to come up and say, hey, I need a sheath for this. And I'll go, okay, it's probably this one. What do you think about that? And they're like, man, that looks awesome. I'll take it.
Oh. Where do you stand on the idea of sheath accessories, like extra pockets or scout carries, extra straps?
I'm more traditional with that aspect. Okay. I think the sheath should be the sheath. My philosophy is you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So you don't want to have a sheath that has an Altoid tin carrier and a fire steel loop and a place to put your flashlight and a place to put 17 other different things onto your sheath itself. Okay. Because if you lose that, you lose everything. Yeah. I prefer to have that kind of stuff in either like a chest rig or, a fanny pack or your backpack or whatever. Because most of the time, if you're carrying something like that, you have a secondary knife anyways as a backup knife. So if you happen to lose or damage your primary knife, then you've always had that backup, but you still have a way to start a fire. You still have a way for your first aid or whatever you keep in your Altoid tin, your little survival pouch kit thing. That's always somewhere separate. Okay. So not keeping your eggs in one basket has always been my philosophy.
Okay. And you had mentioned that you offer fire steel loops on a lot of your sheaths.
Yes.
Do you do it on all of your sheaths?
I do it on the sheath if it's an option on the website. If people want the fire steel loop, if they don't want the fire steel loop. Okay. So it's totally their option on it. And it really depends on the knife itself. Like any knife that's more or less designed for woodworking or bushcrafting, typically that will get a fire steel loop on it. Okay. And all of our fire steel loops are sized for a 3/8 diameter fire steel. Okay. You can it's close enough so where you can wet form it and finagle a little bit, and you get a 1/2-inch diameter fire steel in there if you want to.
Okay, but you can't go the other way and get a 1/4 inch to fit in there.
No. Okay. It'll slide in there. It'll be very loose, and you can actually carry it like that if you want to put some type of like shock cord around the fire steel loop and somehow secure it in there.
Okay. Have you played with any of the other clip options, like a G clip or anything like that? Or
I've played a little bit with the and I forget the name of it. The what is that one that has the little catch on it?
the tabs, like Cobra buckles?
Yeah, like those. Mm-hmm. I've played a little bit with that, but I'm not happy with the way it looks.
Okay.
It looks like just something added to the sheath. It's not an integral part of the sheath.
Yep.
The Ultra Clip has been the only one so far that I've seen that actually looks like it belongs on the sheath.
Yeah.
As long as I designed the sheath for it.
Okay.
Now, one thing with the Ultra Clip things that I've been talking with the company itself is to be able to retrofit that to any of our sheaths.
Oh, okay.
90% of our sheaths have a top eyelet on it. Mm-hmm. And that's for if you want to secure your knife into it with a lanyard, you can slide it through the eyelet. You can secure your knife into there to give it more secure carry.
Yep.
I've been working with Ultra Clip on those to try and figure out a way to retrofit any sheath that we have with an Ultra Clip to utilize that top eyelet.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Is there anything that you feel is missed or not well represented in the world of sheaths?
That is kind of missed with knife makers is the fact of how integral the sheath is to the entire package. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the knife makers, and you know, it's their philosophy, it's totally their choice. Yep. But I think that a good quality sheath, whoever makes it, should go with a good quality knife.
Okay.
And
you're happy to fill that void.
Absolutely. Yes, I am more than happy to fill that void. And I think at some point you're just phoning it in.
Yep.
And even just not having a sheath with the knife, mm-hmm. because you've got it now. You have to go that extra step of finding the sheath that'll fit it.
Yeah, it adds another step for the consumer.
Exactly.
So, obviously, I'm sure you're on all the social platforms and all that stuff.
As much as I can, which is very difficult with how many sheaths we make a year.
Yep. So JRE Industries on all of the platforms.
Yes, we are. Instagram is JRE IND. We are in JRE Industries on Facebook. We have a little bit on TikTok.
Mm-hmm. And your website's jreindustries.com.
Correct.
And Wet Dog Leather.
Wetdogleather.com is our outlet store.
And you'd mentioned earlier that you have the lifetime warranty on all of your sheaths.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say?
We will replace any sheath. It doesn't matter what happened to it. I don't care. My whole philosophy is that if the sheath is not performing the way you want to, and it doesn't matter why it does that, I will replace it.
Okay.
If there's, like I said, we had a few people through the years that a dog got a hold of it and chewed the crap out of it.
Yeah.
I'll replace that sheath. If it finally just wears out from the fact you're using it all the time, I'll replace that sheath.
Okay.
If you put the knife in wrong because it's extremely sharp and you slice it a little bit, I'll replace that sheath. I don't care any reason. If the sheath isn't functioning the way you want it to, I will replace that sheath.
Okay. All right, Spen, I think.
And the same thing goes with the strop beds too. I've had a few people who have used the strop beds so much where they've actually worn out the leather.
Wow, that's impressive.
And if they've finally worn out the leather, or if there's a reason it's not working, like the glue finally comes off with the leather, they can send it back. I will put fresh leather on it, or I will send them a replacement.
Okay, that's awesome. I think that's everything I have, Spen. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
And it was a unique pleasure sitting down with you finally and really getting to
I
peel
know
back
you've been
the
wanting to
onion
do
layers.
this for quite a while. So,
Yes.
Yep.
This is something I've been wanting to do for quite some time.
Yep.
So thank you very much.
You're
And
welcome.
for you guys, thank you very much for listening, and look forward to catching you at the next Campfire conversation. Thanks, everyone, and thanks for listening to The Shack.
Thank you, Mikey.